Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurudeva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Not as many as I'd hoped, but we'll still have fun today. So those of you in Saket, hopefully you're there as well. And everyone in the WhatsApp group got the framework today. I sent in a picture. This picture is not to scare you. That's not the intention by any means. It's just for us to further explore what we're looking at when it comes to creating our plans and making for a smoother classroom experience for you and for the kids. So what do I want to go through today? Last time we went through the 4 different parts necessary to really from beginning to end. Beginning meaning preparation for class, end meaning the reflection and the other responsibilities we do for growth and development. From the beginning to the end, how are we utilizing our time well, and how are we making the best class in terms of content and engagement and delivery, looking at both of those aspects. So the first thing we saw is preparation. That means knowing the content, knowing the students, and designing instruction that's conducive to both of these things. Then an environment. This is a long-term thing of when we think of the class for the whole year, what is the kind of culture we're creating in the class? Is it one of openness? Do the kids feel comfortable sharing? Is it one of competition, where teachers reward those kids who somehow share the best and it turns into some Rajasic kind of output like that? Or is it a tamasic setting, where this is the best nap the kids have ever taken is during your class in Bal Vihar? For high school, that's one big challenge for sure. So this is what we explore. Now today, I want to focus on one specific link, the link between preparation and instruction. Because for instruction, the 3 things we had was communicating with the students, engaging the students, we see how that's different, demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness as well. How do we adapt to situations, not just forcing our lesson on the kids, but adapting to what the situation is? How do they learn? How are they responding? What's their prior knowledge or lack of prior knowledge? What are their pain points? Really catering to that. So the first thing part I wanted to focus on today was, I'll go through a workshop that I did recently, utilizing these different factors and how it came about. We'll dissect that. Then I'll have you in groups based on age level of the kids, not your age, and then seeing how we can make a workshop as well. So this is a workshop I did yesterday. Now, one thing I've been known to do is, if there's a certain framework and workshop that I make, and it works well, I scale it up and down for different age groups. So last year there was one I did on Hindu identity, different factors, the intersections of them and everything. I've done that first time for chicks, then I did that for adults, then middle schoolers, then high schoolers. I've done it all over. I beat that horse dead. If I find one that I like, I do it for everyone. I finally got to do a new workshop yesterday after a long time. We started our chick sessions yesterday, and I wanted this topic for the chicks this year in our Saturday sessions to be workshops on Srimad Bhagavad Gita. Because the challenge I was running into, and this comes to knowing the students, in that chick group was a lot of them travel for work, or wedding season is upon us, which is like 9 months out of the year is apparently wedding season now. So they're always missing because they're going different places. So like Bal Vihar, consistency of who comes to chick class varies all the time. Now, if I take up a text that we're reading through, like Self-Unfoldment or Kindle Life, they feel left out at a certain point because they've missed the previous classes. So I need to have disparate workshops that you don't feel like you're missing anything if you're just parachuting in for a few weeks. At the same time, there has to be some progress moving forward. It can't be the same points done again and again. This is an adult satsang at the end of the day, right? So I had to find something. So I thought this year, why not workshops on Srimad Bhagavad Gita? The first thing I want to do the first day, if you look at the framework, takeaways are really big. What did I want the students leaving with on that first day? I wanted them to appreciate that whatever station of life I'm in, whatever problems I think are plaguing me, Srimad Bhagavad Gita has the answer. Meaning it's not a eclectic test that contains everything under the sun. That's not the purpose of what I wanted to show. At the same time, it's not that it's so isolated, only meant for a few people, only about that mystical highest knowledge. Bhagavad Gita is the most practical text. So I had to convey that to them. Now, knowing the students, again, what's the challenge, especially with chicks, high schoolers and chicks in general, is if I just say it's applicable to you, it helps you, no one takes that seriously then. It's just, yeah, Hari's standing there, he's saying it, yeah, whatever. They need to come to the conclusion on their own then. So the workshop has to get those key takeaways there, understand the value of Srimad Bhagavad Gita before we jump in. Another thing it has to accomplish is they have to come to that conclusion, can't just be me spoon-feeding it. And the third thing is, it has to set the tone, culture-wise, environment, we see what kind of culture we want to set, of that they can contribute, they can ask questions. I want to set that tone, especially with freshmen in the class, first time they're attending a chick class. Because if it comes across as preachy, like this is right now in that first chick class, they're going to be turned off after that. So all of these challenges I have to think of during the week. Now, how did I navigate that workshop then? Here's what I did. Started with the image. This is a human being, by the way. He's malnourished, and that's why he's so skinny. So let's make him sad. This is a human being. Now I made a chart right here. Dissected in two. What is the chart right here? This is age. So we have age of 5, 10, 15, 25, and let's say we stop at about 30. Because there were chicks, I stopped there. Here I stopped at 35, because no one here is over 35, but I stopped at 30 for them. So 30 is where we stopped in terms of age. Now, we looked at internal markers right here, external markers right here. So this is the extent of what I set up. My question to them, the first question was, list out milestones in a person's life as they go through age. Typical milestones that come, what are they? Where are those internal ones or external ones? So let's not worry about that in the beginning then, just milestones then, listing milestones. Let's go through this then. What are milestones given the ages here? Walking, crawling, talking, all of that, right? Let's put walking, ityadi. Is school at a certain point. So then social customs and norms, they start understanding that at that age. Unless you're a COVID kid who went to elementary school during the pandemic, social skills, we see the effect right now. Trust me, I see it. It's different. So then let's put the other obvious ones as well, somewhere around here. High school graduation. If you stick to it later, somewhere around here. College graduation. Then for those who choose to do so, somewhere around here, hopefully, they get married at that age. Then kids come, I didn't want to scare the chick, so I didn't put the whole having kids part there, but that comes naturally after as well. What else? What are some other milestones? Let's fill in some things. First job, hopefully here. First job should be here, actually. I think that's better to have. First job that you understand how much it costs to get that minimum wage paycheck. Really important to have. Let's put one more. How about here? Yes. Social circles established by this age. Studies show if you haven't met your best friend by this age, it's probably not going to happen, finding a best friend. Life partner can happen later on too. Best friend, though, it's got to be established by that point, or else it doesn't happen. So sorry if I'm making any of you sad by mentioning that, but that is what the article said. I'm not saying it. The article said it. So these are ages, different milestones. That was my first ask. Write down the milestones. Second is, as you traverse these milestones, in terms of growth as a person, what is expected of you in terms of growth? Now, this is where the bifurcation of internal-external came in our chart. Some things are internal growth. My level of detachment, my level of reliance on family, supporting others, that's internal, only I can know. There are external factors, however. How do I follow social norms? Am I a socially awkward person? Do I know how to talk to people? Which that affects getting a job, things like this. Those are all external factors. So I had them list some things. So let's list some things and tell me if it's internal or external. The ask is, what are expectations for my growth from the age of 0 to 30?
Follow the norms of the society.
And that's an external thing?
Yeah.
Around what time frame?
It starts young.
Starts young, that's where it is, and it goes upward from there, right? Basic things. You're at a restaurant, your food comes out first and you're in a group, don't start eating. I'm surprised how many people don't know that, and it's really interesting to see. Societal norms start there. What other expectations do we have? Beyond time? That's an external thing. When does that start? Chinmay mission also. Let's start with the, I don't know, school. Yeah, Chinmay. How many Jews walked in late to teachers? I'm not going to go there. I'm just kidding. Study skills.
Yeah, study skills.
That really becomes solidified at this age.
Facing disappointment.
Facing disappointments. When does that, do you think? Teenage years. Whether it's not getting that coveted internship or going through that first breakup, whatever it is, facing disappointments. Let's do a few more.
Differentiating between right and wrong.
Right versus wrong. Where on this?
Throughout the studies, it's done for
Twice we can put it then, on different levels of when it happens. Right versus wrong right here for some things, and you get here at a certain point too. Right. What else? One more marker we can do. Making friends. That's an external one. How to make friends and everything, I'd say, once that starts here, inviting people to your birthdays and stuff, and then again right here. What kind of friends do I need in my life? So we'll stop there. With the chicks, we went on for half an hour, we filled the whole thing out. Now the most important part here. My next question to them was, with a black marker then, have me circle all of those elements that we've put that has some kind of spiritual connection to it. I left it vague on purpose. Have me circle whatever has a spiritual connection in some way to it. Oh, by the way, they put one more that you guys didn't. I found it fun that they put this. This has relevance as well. Cooking food. You know, there's a board that said it too, so yes. As a life skill, right? Relationships. Familial, romantic, whichever way you look at it. All of the above, relationships. So the ask was, circle those that have a spiritual connection or spiritual significance to them. Let's do that together now. Tell me what to circle. I am at your mercy. You tell me what to do.
Cooking food and society.
Has a spiritual connection to it?
Major.
Okay, what else? Zorse.
The right and wrong.
Right and wrong, definitely. Definitely. What else?
Making friends.
Making friends. What kind of friends? Why are they my friends? What do I get from them? What do I give them?
The norms.
Social norms. How do I act in society? Relationships definitely do.
Facing disappointments.
Facing disappointments. How is my reaction versus response in these situations? What else?
Even just the practice of beyond time
Is a discipline and that has spiritual significance to it?
Even
Okay.
school is religious, right? We do Aksharbhyasam and all that, right?
So from a samskara standpoint, I'm not saying even when it comes to school and what we do, for us, no matter if you're in a secular school, that does have a spiritual significance, that thing of education. What else? Study skills, would you say that's a spiritual connection at all?
Yeah. Yes.
Just because I said it, we're saying, okay, let's go do it. Social circles? Wow, wow. You're taking my place next time. I'm not doing it next time. What am I doing up here? Marriage. Is there spiritual? Thank God, yes, please. That was the first one you should have said. College and high school graduation, is there anything like that?
Yes.
Snapaka Sanskara route was where we're going. We could do that, also looking at what does it mean to be in a good college versus bad college? What does that mean to me internally? Spirituality does determine that as well. What is my outlook? So we've effectively circled everything but the guy right there, right? Okay, we've circled everything. By the time we got to this point, the point I wanted to get across to them was every milestone or expectation, whether internal or external, has some spiritual connection to it. That's not the final takeaway. This is still the halfway point. Has some spiritual connection. Do you, as chicks, think Bhagavad Gita addresses each of these milestones in my life? And then they kind of wavered at that point. I don't really know Gita chanting, I do. Besides that, don't really know the vastness of it. After all, and I kind of pushed them in that direction. I said, it's only 700 shlokas, how much can be in there then? And a lot of it is Arjuna asking questions anyway, how much knowledge is there in that? It's all doubts. But then we explored something different. I said at the end of Gita, 16th, 17th, 18th chapters, there is exhaustive analysis of a certain framework. The 3 gunas and how they play a role in my personality. Whether it's dana, giving in charity. There's a sattvic way of giving danam, rajasic way, tamasic way. Then I pointed to food. So okay, you guys said food. They first had not circled that for being religious. Then they did later on, the reason saying, we make prasad for puja, therefore food has a religious connotation. I said, okay, I'll circle it for that reason. Let's go deeper here. In Srimad Bhagavad Gita, ahara is analyzed. Ahara is what I consume through all of my 5 senses. Media consumption in the nature is also ahara. But food is specifically taken up in Bhagavad Gita. Rajasic food is what? That inebriates, that which intoxicates, non-vegetarian, alcohol, that's all tamasic ahara. Rajasic ahara, extreme flavors of food, very salty food, very spicy food. So if you're from southern India, Rajasic food is the biggest delicacy you can get. Sattvic food. Sattvic food is that which is consumed 3 hours or less after being prepared. Sattvic food is that which does not slow down the body. Like after eating a greasy pizza, the next morning you wake up, you feel so oily, like you're sweating the toxins out, it's awful. The same thing these kids go through after a wild night out as well. Alcohol and all of that. So it's all there. So I said, now do you see why the food has that spiritual relevance? Because as this mind, intellect have to be optimal for sadhana, starts at the body level, because that is the matter which really dictates the makeup of my mental condition, starting from there. So like that, we went circling things and facing disappointments as well. If action is being done in that spirit of karma yoga to cleanse this inner intellect, results do not dictate the success of that action. Whether it's cleansing me and working on my vasanas, that is what's indicative of, is this worthwhile action? Is it being done the right way? We went through all of these things. Now here's the kicker. At this point, they're starting to understand that, my goodness, Bhagavad Gita does have a relevance where it addresses everything in my life. Now, what were my goals with this workshop? Takeaway has to be there. It was there. I can't say the takeaway, because they won't believe it at that point. It has to come from them. I simply made the chart. That's all I did. All the milestones, you gave. All the expectations, internal or external, for different ages, you gave. Most importantly, circling it to see what has a religious connotation, spiritual significance, you gave again. I didn't do anything there. It was all you guys that came to this point then. So it's not me feeding you this and saying that, Bhagavad Gita has the answers. You got to it yourself. The only point I contributed at the end was specifically mentioning where Gita mentioned these type of things. So that was also there. One more takeaway, this was a wild card variable that I had, was, what's the impetus then? I asked a curveball question, where looking at, they mentioned value system, all of these things as well. For any of these things of right and wrong, learning how to face disappointment, study skills, establishing a good friend group, do you need religion, namely Sanatana Dharma, to establish these things in your life? You don't. You don't. I have plenty of friends who are not Hindu that have never heard of Gita, who do have great friends, who study really well, who have gone through life, who have a good school structure, they know right from wrong. They're not out murdering people, they understand, they just don't believe. So what's going to bring me to study Gita time and again then? That buy-in, and you see buy-in is also in the framework that we presented, buy-in from the students has to be there. What is your buy-in? I asked it very clearly. And they were shocked that I said that. Is brahmachari saying that Hinduism is not necessary to accomplish all these things? I said, let's reorient ourselves here. What we find in Sanatana Dharma that we don't find anywhere else is that highest purusha life, essentially the only goal of life, if we look at it, is moksha. All of these different milestones done the right way, all of these qualities inculcated, purify me so that I can approach the knowledge to get that moksha. That's what Bhagavad Gita points me at. All the while, in everything Bhagavad Gita is presenting, it's not to be the best ahankara I can be. It's to shed this identity of BMI, identifying with something higher. These are steps in that process of growth. So then that made the point go home. That was the curveball wild card question. Reason that was asked is, we need them coming back class after class. What's the reason then? Because I can get all of this from somewhere else. That objection can come up. Let's nip it in the bud before. Let's have them think as well. So the point of me telling you all this is not to say, well, I made a great workshop yesterday. That's not the case. The same framework I'm giving you, I'm following that myself. It's helped me so much. Because coming back as a brahmachari, first 2 years, teaching was a struggle. To any age group. Adult satsangs, the feedback I was getting was, dude, you meander, you go this way, this way. And I said, I have to cover an hour. How do you expect me not to go this way, that way? But then looking at how Swamiji speaks, looking at how Shastra is structured, there are different ways we can tackle these things while staying on the point. Teaching chicks was a challenge because I wanted to have this interactive space. At the same time, I wasn't getting what I wanted to teach out because I was entertaining questions the whole time. So how do I build that structure? Structure is also something in the framework. So finding all of these things in several frameworks, putting it all together, that really helped me. So now I'll stop talking. Time for the exercise portion then. Okay? Once I say so, we'll get into 4 different groups. Kindergarten to second grade teachers in one group. And even if you're not a teacher now, you join whichever group you want to. Wherever you feel like the least annoying people are, you go join that. That's all it is. Kindergarten to second grade, I say that out loud, I'm so sorry. Kindergarten to second grade, one group. 3rd to 5th, one group. 6th to 8th, one group. And then 9th through 12th, one group. Okay? What you're going to do there is, I'll give you about 15 to 20 minutes there. Using the framework, come up with a topic you want to talk about with the kids. Using this framework in several ways, come up with a lesson then. That accounts for, if we look at it real quick, let's look at it together. When it comes to preparation and instruction, number 1 and 3, you can include other things if you want to also, of knowing the content, applying the knowledge in real and given situations. Knowing the students about prior knowledge, recalling previous classes to find trends. What do we mean by that? When you recall previous classes to find trends, you see these are the misconceptions they have. These are the things they like to talk about. These are activities they like to do. You have that knowledge. When it comes to engaging the students, one thing that I had written down there was about spotlight on them. Where is that? Engaging students, use student responses to keep the spotlight on them in class. Meaning, this is something I see for all levels, especially middle school and high school. Bal-Vihar class is not the time for the teacher to show how brilliant they are. Classes where that happens, it turns into a monologue, and it completely falls apart at that point. Kids aren't impressed by that. What kids are impressed by is when you can include them in that conversation, getting their... I could have started the session by saying Gita talks about this, Gita talks about that, and giving it. That would have no purpose. Yeah, I studied Gita, good for you, honey, go back to your room. That's what the ethos would be. Instead, they got there, and I filled in some gaps at the end. I spoke the least in the class of everybody. That was the goal. Now, the other thing to look at, one other thing you can look at is, yes, design a structure for peer-to-peer learning. There's one famous Subhashita. That knowledge comes to us in 4 parts. 1/4 is taught by the teacher. 1/4 is taught by intelligence, making connections on our own. 1/4 of knowledge comes from life experiences. You have me beat in that department. You've been through so much more. I come to you all often, for tips on things that are going on. Last part comes from Sabrahmachari Bihi, from our fellow students, peer-to-peer learning. So whenever there's room for kids to share their experiences and talk about what they've been through and different skill sets they have, that's a great way for peer-to-peer learning. Final thing I talk about here is, yes, the second point on instruction, communicating with students, distinguish segments of one-way communication in contrast with two-way communication. When I was entertaining so many questions in Chick class, I couldn't get out what the actual lesson was because I was getting lost in those questions. So there's a portion that I have for one-way communication where I introduce the topic, then the activity where they're doing it, then again one way where I debrief, then I take questions at the end again. That structure seems to help, so finalizing that structure as well. So take about 20 minutes, and I'm leaving it ambiguous on purpose. You as a group decide what your topic is, and it can be anything from the common syllabi that you have for your grade levels. So kindergarten to second grade over here, 3rd through 5th over here, 6 through 8 over here, and 9 through 12 in the back or here, wherever you feel most comfortable. 11:15 right now, let's go to 11:35, all right? Anyway. 5 more minutes. 5 more minutes. Right. Come to a stop. Say your final 3 words. Make it the best 3 words ever. So now let's debrief a little bit here. I'll just go through some points that, building on it, now that you've had exposure to the framework and working within it, a few things to talk about then. One difficult thing about preparation is, what points do I emphasize? For a high school grade or a middle school grade, when it's more conceptual, there are key takeaways you can have. This is what I emphasize that get us to the main goal. That's easier to do. Younger grades, when it's story-based, what do you mean emphasize parts of a story and not others? It's a whole story, you just tell it. What you repeat from the story, what part you give more time to, which part of the story you start asking them questions in, that's where the emphasis lies. So it's like Swamiji's example of the worst camp ever. Camp went well. It was in India, on Ramayana. They conducted the whole camp, stories and everything. Then they asked the kids, who's your favorite character? One kid said Ravana because he had 10 heads. So emphasis was not given in the right place of who to really emulate, who to look up to, right? That can happen. He just had 10 heads. It's pretty cool. All of you have only one. I want someone with 10 heads. But they honed in the wrong thing then. So emphasis, what is it? Prior knowledge, how do we gauge that? After 1 year of science unfoldment, when they come to 12th grade, you said, what is karma? And they say, oh, what is karma? That's what they ask you back, because they don't retain anything. Same thing with a lot of things here. Prior knowledge has to do more with, are they able to articulate and discuss where you're taking this now? If you bring up a certain concept and you say that there's contention, like in Mahabharata, as an 8th grader can relate to that part at least. When you talk about, okay, how you guys talked about devotion to Bhagavan is important during Bhagavatam time, because that bleeds into 3rd grade when it comes to 24 gurus, that same Shraddha is needed. So if they can harken back to some things thematically, even if it's not specific concepts, that's good enough for prior knowledge. And we'd be surprised to see how much they do retain. Surprised they retain a lot. There's 3 layers given here: activity, workshop, discussion. I'll do one session just on this coming up in a few weeks. What is the difference between the 3? So that's something I put and/or discussion. So they're all 3 distinct things that are done for certain topics. That takes us to this next part of instruction here. What is meant by diverse teaching? If you notice, the wording here that I put is, list diverse ways of teaching on similar topics to avoid stagnation. So when it comes to the same few sets of saints for 6th grade saints of India, there are similarities between them. Do different kinds of activities on those same saints. It may speak to a kid differently then. Because often what we do is we lump together a certain topic, do a certain kind of activity, change the activity up when it comes to the next topic. In the same topic, do some different things so that we're diversifying how we're teaching. The kids may understand better that way. A wider swath of kids understand. Now, that takes some more playing around with the framework. I know that's a point that we can get to, but some of you are already doing that. Spotlight, then. Again, we mentioned it before, keep the spotlight on the kids. Even during the story portion, when they're acting out certain things, then Ramchandraji wore the crown, they all make crowns, things like this. Keep them involved at that level, spotlight on them, not them just staring at you. Have them follow you in how you're telling the story. For the older grade children then, again, it's not about how much I know as a teacher. That's important. Knowledge base is necessary because the very first thing is knowing the content, but keeping the spotlight on them where if it's a group discussion then, letting them drive the discussion. Facilitating a discussion and driving a discussion are 2 separate things. Now, do you have to step in at certain times to lead the activity or discussion a certain way? You do. Because I saw that you guys didn't mention food, I wrote up there for a point I had to make later. Sometimes you have to make those course corrections, and hopefully it's more subtle than the way I did it, but in discussions then make sure you're facilitating, throwing the ball around to them, correcting when necessary, but letting them get to the conclusion then, not just telling them this is what it is. Buy-in and then distinguishing the environment. Those go together very well. Buy-in means, are they invested in this is worthwhile? From a young age, if it's not worthwhile, they will tell their parents. They know if a teacher comes prepared or not. Even as early as 3rd grade, they know if a teacher is prepared. So are they really buying into the system where they don't see it as they're forced to do all of these things, forced to listen? Is it them wanting to do it? And we can tell that early on. distinguishing this environment from any other environment of learning. That's the distinct culture we have here at Balvihar. There's no grades given for how they do here. It's not that they can get ahead by doing some extra credit or something like that. It doesn't work that way. It's a whole different organism and ecosystem of why we have these classes here. So especially for the older grades here then, when it comes to distinguishing the environment, it's that this is not a place where giving the right answer gives you a leg up on anyone else. In a school system, that is there. Giving the right answer means you're better than the others. Here, giving a textbook answer, memorizing that doesn't do anything for us. Define energy. They define it according to self-unfoldment. That's not what we want. In your words, what is your connection to this knowledge? That's something they're not asked in any other learning environment, of what their interpretation is and how they will apply this later. Everything else is meant for a grade, for a college, for a job. This knowledge here helps them more in life than that knowledge will. In terms of interpersonal relationships and building their Shraddha, that's something to really convey. Incorporating elements from the teacher satsangs then. This is not to say teacher satsang is star-spangled awesome and that's why you have to incorporate it. That's not my goal here. It's that sometimes when we struggle to engage with the kids, which is something we're seeing across many different grade levels, part of it is generational divide, which I used to make fun of that until I turned 30. Now I'm seeing that as well. Generational divide, I'm going through that like you are, to a certain extent. There is the upbringing divide as well. Most of you grew up in India, where that upbringing, what's expected, the linear form of thinking, all of that is different. I'm not saying you're not creative. I'm saying that creative teaching was never something demanded of you. That is demanded from a young age in this country then. As they go through the school system, that creativity is demanded. That's what they're used to from their learning environments. They expect the same thing here, for better or for worse. So generational divide, upbringing divide, as well as expectation divide as well. Your least expectation is, in closing prayers, if you're an 8th grader, sit with your legs crossed, back straight, and chant the prayers. Do they always do that? No, they're shuffling their bags, things like this. Basic expectations aren't met. We have a certain reaction to it. And we can go to an extent and say, yeah, they're kids, they're immature, whatever. But certain expectations have to be inculcated. And one funny thing recently, just another day a coordinator was telling me was, one grandmother complained, saying that my kindergartner, you're telling her to sit cross-legged and stuff in class, she doesn't do that at home, they don't have that expectation, so why here, that's hard for her. Just because things are not optimal at home and they're not teaching the right things doesn't mean we aren't going to teach the right things here. We are going to do that. We are going to stick to what we know. It's not that to make up for the fact that we want to make you feel better that you're not doing things exactly right with your kids at home, doesn't mean we're going to dilute what we do here. We're going to keep our standards as well. So that's an expectation. They learn to meet it then, because what we do will help them in the long run. Trust me, it will. And you see that difference. So just some thoughts that I had based on that framework. So we are still sticking with as I think. I have not abandoned that text. Only thing is, I've been amassing feedback the past couple of months, seeing how our sessions are run and everything. I think this framework helps us. Let's move forward with it. And I won't be doing whole sessions on the framework anymore. This is the last one of those. But as it relates to the topic, certain parts of the framework that apply, I'll go in depth in those and we can discuss them. So hopefully it is fruitful in that way. And I have no doubt that your conversations as I was walking around, such good thoughts you're sharing with each other, we'll keep that up as well. So 2 things I want to add at the end here. One is, I asked a question last time in Saket, you all heard it, about how would you feel about having class evaluations, where the caveat is only I would get that information of who said what. I don't want the teachers having that, only me. But each of you, or some of you are individually reaching out saying yay or nay. Keep doing that. Let me know individually on WhatsApp or give me a call. Let me know what you think about having evaluations. And I'm thinking for 8th grade and above. Younger than that, I don't want to bring that in. 8th grade and above, what is your thought on doing that? You all can weigh in, though, on 8th grade and above. Second thing is, one thing I'm considering, having movie workshops once a month in our teacher satsangs. Now, watching a movie workshop on the screen is going to be tough, because discussion is there, all of these things. I'm thinking the week I do a movie workshop in the Saket, when I'm there, that week can be like a workshop time here where you work with each other on some lesson plans, or I'll bring some questions in, You spend the hour discussing those things. The week I'm here doing a movie workshop in Chitrapur, which will be the next week or the previous week, in Sakrit, that's like a study hall for the teachers that week where they get together in these kinds of groups here. Certain questions I'll give, certain pain points you can discuss, exchange of ideas. That's just something I'm floating around in my head. Let me know, what would you think? Oh, what's a movie workshop? Okay. So traditionally, a movie workshop is you watch a whole movie and discuss things with some concept. The way I do it, though, if you were in teachers training, you guys remember the movie workshop there? I build it around a clip of Gurudev speaking on a topic. I break that up into pieces, put movie scenes around that, and have discussion questions as we go. So it lasts anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, but it can be fun, where Gurudev talking about a certain theme, in this case it would be about teaching, and then various other movie clips to add some humor or some depth or insights or something, following those arcs. So I generally take 2 or 3 or 4 movies, have different clips from there, building the narrative, with Gurudev as the central focus, and I'm a facilitator asking different questions. That's what it will be. So I want to give that to our teachers once a month at least, something fun. Because I used to do that for e-Bal Vihar. For chicks when we were online, I used to do that once a month or so. So I think teachers can benefit from that kind of a fun thing as well. You've all been good so far, that's why. It's to reward you. So with that, we close for today. And thank you so much for being here. Om Shanti 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 Hari